let's go to Jaqui Lane, our correspondent in Australia, who has got some exciting news for us. Well, if you're an Australian, anyhow. I don't know what the implications will be for New Zealand, but we'll find out. Jackie joins us from Sydney now. Welcome, Jack.
Hi, how you going?
Big news today.
Oh, very excited. Albo was obviously up early. He was in the car at 7 o'clock this morning, heading off to Government House in Canberra. Less than 12 hours after Dutton's response to the budget speech on Tuesday. There we go.
Right, so he set the election date. What's the election day?
3rd of May.
Now that's what's that? About 5 weeks away from now,
Five
is it? Is it?
weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you
Five
have?
weeks. 5 weeks of high vis vests.
Oh yes. Well, good luck. Yeah, 5 weeks. I suppose 5 weeks is about normal, is it?
Yeah. Month to 6 weeks. I mean, I think we're all over it already. It
Yeah, yeah,
has been.
yeah. Well, you've been it's been yeah electioneering since the first day of the year, or probably the end of last year.
Yeah,
Listen, just quickly on that. So, you are a there's 150 seats, I think, is that right, in the House of Representatives? They're all
yep.
for under our old first past the post system. So, whatever the polls show is sort of irrelevant because it'll come down to seat by seat, contest by contest. Is that right?
Not quite that simple. There's kind of a first past the post, but then also we have preferences. So depending on so the it actually comes down to the preference deals, and depending on who gets the most and what the results are, the preferences often end up determining who actually wins the seat. And now that we've got more independence, both current and contesting, it's going to be really line ball in a number of seats. So I would be very surprised that, in fact, if we even know on the night who's actually got the majority, and it won't be a clear one. All the indications are is that we're going to end up with a hung parliament. A third Liberal, third Labor, and maybe a third with independents and other parties.
Okay. Well, I mean, the thing is, though, I always am interested that, pardon me, and I think the last election in the United States rather proved it, that opinion polls give you an indication, but usually you're always a bit surprised by the final results and who wins and who doesn't. I guess that'll happen in this case too. I'm interested in, so let's just go the parties very quickly. You've got the governing Labour Party. The principal opposition is a coalition between the Liberal Party, which is urban, and National, which is a sort of a country party. They're the centre-right forces. And then who else are the other major players who could get seats in Parliament?
Well, we've got the Greens. So the Greens used to be what was called the Democrats. They're now the Greens. They're not a very large party, but they hold some critical inner urban seats. Um, and
Where are they
this is where,
strongest? I'm assuming somewhere where there's lots of environment. Were they strongest in
well,
Tasmania?
no, it tends to be inner urban trendies,
Ah, okay. People yeah, don't
yeah,
have to worry about it. Who've got lots of money.
correct,
They're like
correct.
Wellington.
Yep.
Yep.
So that tends to be them. And then you have the patriot of whatever Clive Palmer's little exercise, which probably won't get anybody, but he's spending a swag of money. You have One Nation, Pauline Hanson, who's still kind of floating around. Um, and so those are your key players. And of
So
course,
I'm
now,
assuming that if I vote for Clive, whatever his name is, and Pauline Hanson's party, they'll get discounted because they haven't got a chance. So my second preference becomes important then, does it?
correct, correct.
Mm.
And so the real name of the game in contested seats will be trying to get as much as the primary vote as possible, but actually it's going to be the preferences that often determine it.
And then I've got have I a series of what are known as teals, who seem to be largely
Correct.
liberal women,
Correct.
again in sort of inner city Melbourne and Sydney. Is that right?
Pretty much. So I'm in Wentworth, and our candidate is Allegra Spender, and she is an independent and came in at the last election. And Wentworth was a Liberal held seat for decades. So there's been a real, particularly for the Liberals, the independents have cut a swathe through a lot of very safe Liberal seats. But Labor's got a few issues. So I think it'll be a really interesting election from the point of view is that local issues are actually going to dominate in a number of key electorates. So yeah, the cost of living is Australia wide, and some of those core issues are national. But there's a lot of very active local communities who don't want wind farms, don't want solar farms, don't want mining. So it's going to be a very, 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 local electorate kind of thing, because I think the community has realised that having an independent or a local voice is important to them.
Okay. Well, I suppose it sort of it used to be in New Zealand too, if you remember rightly,
Yeah,
prior to the advent of proportional representation, because local MPs could win seats that parties couldn't, based
correct.
upon their character and their championing of local issues, and ditto they could lose those seats as well. And so you've still got that policy over there. Listen, so that's fine. Uh, I'm assuming though, and listen, this is from afar. You know far better than I, that if I was going to vote for the Teals, these independents, my second preference vote would tend to lean more left than right. What would I be right or wrong?
I think you'd be incorrect. Uh,
Incorrect.
yes.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So given that a lot of, well, not, yeah, a fair swag of those like me who campaign for an independent or a teal, um, it would be unlikely that I would vote Labor rather than Liberal, or give my second preference to a Labor rather than a Liberal. So, and yes, so it's more likely, not assured, that Teal voters probably would have a second preference if, in fact, they did that, because you don't have to put your preferences. You can just, they call it voting above the line and below the line. So you can just write in a number one above the line for your candidate and not fill in the preferences listed, because you have to number all the preferences from one to whatever. So you can just put a one above the line and not give your preference. Um,
So
and
I
or
can't.
you
So just let me get this right. So I can write. I write one against the choice that I've got, but I
Yep,
can't then write two, three, and then forget it. I've got to actually once I start on the list, I've got to complete it right to the end. Is that
correct,
right?
correct.
Oh wow, wow.
So you can choose just to vote one for your main candidate and not fill out anything below the line,
Yeah.
kind of the line, or you have to fill out one to eight or one to whatever. Yeah.
And so what's the proportionality of people who just vote one thing and that's the end of it?
Look, I can't tell you that. I'll have to go and have a look and come back to you.
Oh, okay. All right. I was just thinking, because I think if I got into the booth and I was going to vote and I was taking that particular thing, I probably would take the time to do the numbering.
Yeah, and well, certainly, and again, it varies from candidate to candidate. The main parties tend to inform their voters, what their preferences should be. That they kind of do deals with the other minor parties.
Yeah.
Um, but a lot of the teal independents don't provide any instruction as to what they would like the preference voting to be. It kind of depends. So you don't, yeah. So a lot of the candidates don't instruct their voters on how to allocate their preferences, but some do. So you get a literally a how to vote. flyer, and I've been there handing out those on election day, that will show people how to vote, number their preferences in some cases, or the how to vote card just doesn't even address that issue. It's up
Okay.
to each candidate.
All right. Now, then I've got the Senate, and that I just don't understand. That is a proportional vote. Is that right?
Yeah. So, for instance, One Nation might not get any seats in the House of Reps, but the Senate is allocated on a percentage of the overall vote that party got. So, say One Nation got 5% of the overall vote, that might entitle them to 1 or 2 seats in the Senate, because that's based on a percentage of the total vote, not the electorate vote.
Just explain this to me. How many votes are there in the Senate? I mean, how many seats in the Senate are there?
Oh gosh, I should know that. I can't
You
remember.
should know that. You
I
knew I was going
should.
to ask that question.
I didn't, but there you are.
No.
So yeah, so that's how some of the minor
No, the
parties can
reason that I
actually.
asked that is because I would have thought that 76 is the answer, 12
There we
from
go.
each of the 6 states and 2 from each of the mainland territories.
So every
So,
so every
mm,
party has like a Senate list,
yeah,
and the idea is to be number one on that list, because as you get more seats allocated, that those seats are filled by whoever's on the Senate list in order of where they sit on that Senate list in the party.
right. So here we
Makes
go.
sense.
76 senators, 151 House of Representative members. That's how it goes. And I think I understand, or I'm starting to get some sort of, I'm getting warm, I hope, because the senators are elected from states. It's the proportionality within that state, is it?
Gosh,
It
I'm not
must
sure. I
be.
don't think yeah, don't know. You're asking me these questions that I should know that I
You
don't.
should. Yeah. And how long have you been living there?
Oh, 34 years.
Yeah, there you go. See, you can understand why we're slightly confused in New Zealand how it works. If you've been living there for 34 years and you know your politics back to front, you can't answer that question.
Well, I must say, it took me a while to get my head around the whole Senate House of Reps thing, having two houses of parliament. And then, of course, we've got state parliaments, and then we've got local councils. So I think, I've always had a view that Australia is completely overgoverned. And it kind of comes out in a lot of things like our education policy and mining, because the states have certain authority over some things and the feds have it on others, and then we have a national GST that gets split up between the states. It's a bit of a dog's breakfast, really.